Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to the Youth Dialogue webinar, Voices Against Gender-Based Violence by Center for Communication and Social Impact, CCSI. My name is Lois, and I'd really want to appreciate each and every one of you for joining in. Well, we'd just like to give a few 5 more minutes for others to join, and then we'll kickstart the meeting. Thank you very much. Good afternoon once again. So while we're waiting just for a few more minutes, can you just take the time to fill out attendance sheet? It's on the chat box. Thank you very much. Thank you very much once again for joining the Youth Dialogue webinar, Voices Against Gender Based Violence. We sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. I see Dr. Matthew Oko. Thank you very much for joining. I see Marcia Suko. We thank you. Chizoba, thank you so much. Justin, we're so grateful. Adebisi, Mariam Sadia, thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate your presence and for turning up to lend your voice to the fight against gender-based violence, and also having in mind that gender-based violence is not only about women. So I'm very much encouraged that I see a lot of men here, and this is one of the things we'll also be discussing today during the dialogue. Thank you very much. Yes, and for those of us that are just coming in, there's a link on the chat box. Please, you can just click on it and then fill the attendance just to sign in that you attended. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And sorry we took more than the 5 minutes I said we were going to have, but now going straight to a conversation. And I'd really, really like to appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. This is the Youth Dialogue webinar, Voices Against Gender Based Violence. It is put together by the Center for Communication and Social Impact. My name is Lois Apasambo. And so the Youth Dialogue webinar is an opportunity for each and every one of us to lend our voices to the fight against gender based violence. So, as much as it seems like a webinar or seems like a seminar, it's just an opportunity. It gives each and every one of us the platform to be able to speak, to be able to express and lend our voice. And this is just so that we're not on the routine just being told about gender based violence, but so that we're able to see it from a perspective and also know that there is something that we can do about it. We may not be able to do something physically, but help in putting issues about gender based violence on top burner. Well, just a few housekeeping rules. Um, so, would like us to use the chat box very well. Um, Use the chat box. You can introduce yourself, your name, your organization, and where you're from in the chat box. But don't forget that there is also an attendance that you feel. It's the link is in the chat box as well. All questions, if you have any questions, just as the program is going on, you can also use the chat box, drop your questions or contributions on the chat box. And if you want to speak about this on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, you can use the hashtag youth against GBV. At this point, I'd like to tell you more about what we do at CCSI. But before I go on, I just want to find out, can everyone hear me? I think maybe just give me a thumbs up. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up or just put it in the chat box. Yes, we can hear you, just so that I know I'm not speaking to myself. Okay, I see Deborah Yusuf say, yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much. That's just confirmation. Yeah, so about CCSI. CCSI is the Center for Communication and Social Impact, and we focus on the central role of communication to impact behavior, to build brands, and to lead in technical guidance for communications. We have worked on campaigns of national significance on so many issues, which include family planning, COVID prevention and vaccination, nutrition, good governance, ending violence and harmful practices, which is something we're doing today, and anti-corruption, peace and conflict resolution, as well as water, sanitation, and hygiene, which we call WASH. And that's what we do at CCSI. We also do advocacy and stakeholder engagement, media communications and management, brand development and promotion. We do behavior change communication, very important, capacity building, research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So we have this we call the mentee. We just like to know what you feel or what you want to, um, what you hope to achieve or what you hope to get at the end of the entire webinar. And so you can just click on the link and use the pin and then just a word, just a word. At the end, we would also have like a collage of our words put together to just show you how our thought patterns are as individuals. So you can just click on the link, yes, and use the pin. Just give you a few 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll be back. Thank you. So the link is on the chat box with the pin as well. You can just use that there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. At the end of the program, we'll just show you the collage and what it looks like, our thoughts patterns. So just a rundown of the agenda. We've introduced ourselves and the welcome participants. I would be introducing our three key speakers and very special people that would be sharing their stories with us today. We have the Executive Director of Center for Communication and Social Impact, Mrs. Babafunke Fagbemi. We have Ms. Dorothy Njamanze, the Executive Director of the Dorothy Njamanze Foundation, and Dr. Matthew Oko, a public health expert, very vast in his field. Um, the Executive Director of CCSI will be giving us her keynote address, and we would have Dorothy Njamanzi right after her, who will share insights into her activism and the overview of the current state of gender based violence in Nigeria, because she does a whole lot in that space. While Dr. Matthew Oko will give us his own insights, and most especially speaking to men, so that you're not surprised, gender based violence affect men more than women. We would also have very courageous survivors of gender based violence who will share with us their experiences. And this is so that we're able to understand that gender based violence is not as far as we think it is, and to also broaden our perspectives on what we can do as individuals in contributing to the fight against gender based violence. We would also have an interactive session with those of us that would, have one or two things to say or to contribute. And we'll be wrapping up there. Hopefully, we don't take so much of your time, but thank you once again for taking out time to be with us on the dialogue today. So, straight up, I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director of the Center for Communication and Social Impact, Mrs. Babafunke Fagbemi. She's a dynamic strategic communication socialist with an illustrious career spanning over 27 years. She has taken the lead in developing and managing strategic communication initiatives in various thematic areas of integrated health and social development in Nigeria and in Africa. She's even going beyond Africa. Her commitment towards addressing contextualized inequities is driven from the uniqueness of social and behavioral change (SBC) through human-centered focused campaign. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I am giving you about her anyways. We also have Ms. Dorothy Njamanze. She is the executive director of the Dorothy Njamanze Foundation. She's a bridge builder, connecting survivors with resources. And when she shares with us, you would really understand what I mean by that. She also gives support networks to survivors and avenues for empowerment. That is a whole lot for survivors of gender based violence. The Dorothy Njamati Foundation stands as a beacon of hope, providing a safe space for survivors to heal and to thrive. Dorothy stands at the forefront of the battle, even putting her life at risk so many times against gender based violence as a resilient advocate, a survivor, and a catalyst for change. Her journey is a testament to the power of courage, resilience, and the unwavering commitment to creating a world free of violence. And our third speaker would be Dr. Matthew Oko. Dr. Matthew Oko stands as a distinguished public health professional with extensive training in public health, research, and dental surgery to champion transformative initiatives. With over 2 decades of experience, he emerges as a luminary in the field, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of health and gender based violence. He is armed with a wealth of experience as a clinician and public health researcher. Dr. Oko has dedicated the last 17 years of his life to advancing public health in diverse capacities, including starting a social media health advocacy to encourage people to adopt positive health behaviors. His journey is a testament to his unwavering commitment to driving positive change in health outcomes at all levels, in recognition of which he recently received an appreciation certificate during the last International Men's Day. Dr. Matthew likes to say he's old school, but I feel he's old school with a touch of the new school. He knows a lot about technology. Well, these are our three key speakers and our survivors. One of the reasons why I wouldn't want to introduce our survivors is they plead anonymity. So I would plead that you also, tap in and agree into that. Well, right now, I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director, Center for Communication and Social Impact, Mrs. Babafunke Fagbemi, my boss. Thank you very much, Ma. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lois. I'm trying to get my video on. Hope I'm able to do that. Um, if not, I'll speak off camera until we're able to sort that out. Good afternoon, everyone. And sorry for the technical hitches that we face. Thanks for being consistent. You know, sometimes you really can't control these things, and we are trying hard. And believe me, everything works just until it was time to click start, and everything just went south. So we're trying to resolve the issues with technology. I'm happy that we're at this point. And thank you so much, Lois and team. They've worked so hard to make sure that this webinar is a success. And to my course, I can call you co-keynote speakers, right? Dr. Matthew and Dorothy, thank you so much for making time. So mine, I think I'm the least exciting person to speak on this panel. I just have the privilege because I'm ED of CCSI, so I won't take so much of your time. There's so much we have in store for you. But just to say that the issue of gender-based violence is a universal disease. You know, it doesn't discriminate against race, tribe, color, or class. Everyone is affected. So sometimes I wonder why we even need 16 days of activism set aside when every day should be dedicated to making sure that no one suffers from gender-based violence. But that said, I'm really excited about the theme for this year's Unite campaign, which is invest to prevent violence against women and girls. And we really must understand that gender-based violence is not an abstract conversation. It is tangible. We can feel it. It is real. And it's closer to each and every one of us, I think maybe more than we think. So I know your cameras are off, but can I invite you to just close your eyes for a minute and think of that one time when you have been directly or indirectly affected by gender-based violence. I'll give you a few seconds. Don't fall asleep. And no matter how vivid or vague the memory you can bring up is, believe me, we all have scars. And just like victims of burns, you know, some are first degree scars, second degree scars, or even third degree burns. But no one has 0 degrees after having been inflicted by fire. And when it comes to GBV, I think we're definitely all affected, but we have scars at different levels. So I want to invite you, despite the depressing statistics that claim that, according to WHO globally, can you imagine 1 in 3 women worldwide have been subjected to either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime? That's really, really depressing. Despite those statistics, even from Nigeria, that says that 1 out of 10 women aged 15 to 49 have suffered sexual assault at least once in their lifetime. And not only that, 3 out of 10 had experienced physical violence. I mean, it's just crazy. It just shows how much work we really have to do. So I'd like to invite you, knowing that if you hurt a girl or a woman, you're hurting the family, you're hurting the community, you're hurting the society, and definitely the nation and the world at large. So I'm happy that between the speakers, we are also going to look at how gender-based violence also affects men. But I'm speaking from the point of a woman, and I'm going to encourage and enjoin all of us to not keep quiet, you know, do what needs to be done to be sure that this disease has a permanent cure. So at this point, because I know we've lost some time, can I hand over back to Lois so that she can take us through the rest of the meeting? Thank you so much, and thanks for your patience. Over.
Thank you very much, Ma. We sincerely appreciate your insights on this. And just moving on, I would like to invite Dorothy. Dorothy would give us insights into her work as an activist against gender-based violence in Nigeria and how we can all, contribute in ending this disease, just as my boss calls it. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dorothy. I think Dorothy was here, but it seems she dropped off. Let me just try and see if we can get her back. Okay, so while we wait for Dorothy and try to get her back on the call, I'd just like us to take a look at some of our words and what we expect. We have identification of GBV, effective management, advocacy strategies, updated approaches, better understanding, insights about GBV, useful collaboration, increased knowledge, better knowledge on GBV, stories, solutions, yes, awareness, um, GBV education, insight. We see other words, job opportunities, yes, information, prevention, youthful collaboration. So these are just words giving us insights on what we hope to achieve at the end, or what we hope to get, each and every one of us hope to get at the end of the meeting. So I'm still trying to get back Dorothy. Um, but it seems we're having a challenge there. So I think we'll just move on, and then as she comes on, we would still get her back on. Doctor, I think we'll just yield the floor to Dr. Matthew. Dr. Matthew, um, so that he can take up before we're able to get Dorothy with us. Just a minute. Mm, or has Dr. Matthew dropped off as well? Okay, no, he hasn't. So, Dr. Matthew, you can unmute yourself and both have your session right now while we get Dorothy back on.
Okay, all
Over
right.
to you, Dr. Matthew. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Lois, for this opportunity to be part of this conversation. So I will put on my video. I hope people are able to see me. Technology. So can you guys see me? I don't seem to see myself. If not, I can just put it back off and then we continue offline. So so thank you all once again for being part of this conversation. I'm briefly going to start off by defining what gender is, because oftentimes when we talk about gender, we tend to refer to whether the person is a man or a woman. But gender is defined as a social construct that is based on norms and behavior and roles that are associated with somebody being a man or a woman as expected, by the society. Gender-based violence, on the other hand, is an umbrella term which is used to describe harmful, practices that are perpetrated against individuals based on this socially ascribed construct of gender. So because I'm having this question today from the perspective of men, I would like to divide gender-based violence into two parts. This is not traditionally what happens, but I would like to put it this way so that it's in proper context, so people who are listening. So gender-based violence, I would like to describe in two parts, which one would be traditional practices, which are practices that tend to move from generation to generation across society, that are often enabled by the context of the society where people live. For example, we have women, some places where women are not traditionally sent to school because they believe that women should not be educated. We have female genital mutilation, or female genital cutting, which we traditionally call a female circumcision. We have early forced marriage. We have widowhood practices. These are things that that are enabled by the society in general. And then we have individual actions, which is where my discussion for today will mainly focus. The individual actions here, we are looking at instances where people tend to carry out activities against fellow human beings. So which is where I often have, because this second part is what in quotes comes to mind each time we talk about gender-based violence. And so it makes it appear as if gender-based violence is just men, perpetrating harmful acts against women, when in actual fact, both men and women can actually suffer from gender-based violence, or from these harmful acts. For example, we have somebody physically harming the other person, or have sexual violence against people, and all other forms of violence that involves one individual carrying out an act against another person. So oftentimes it appears because men are the sole perpetrators of gender-based violence because of the way we have lumped it all together, particularly when we consider the first part that I described, which is what I call traditional practices. So, for example, a man will not, or an individual who does not have a vestibule or an clitoris is unlikely going to be caught. It's not likely going to experience female genital cutting. The person is unlikely going to experience what we call harmful widowhood practices because the person is just not a woman. But that is different from when somebody exerts physical violence against other person, which in my view should be termed violence against person, because everybody has equal potential to commit acts of violence. And I put it this way, using Nigeria as an example, people tend to do things that are not legal because they have the impression or the notion that they are able to get away with it. And generally on the average, men tend to be more physically endowed than women. So it is easier for a man to believe that he can get away from hitting a woman. But we know that there are instances where women are more physically endowed compared to the male counterpart, and where they also are able to carry out these acts of violence against the male partner. So this moves me to the point of prevalence, how prevalent this is. And I'm happy that it did come out from the initial comment made by Bafunke. You will see that in the statistics that was given, there was no mention of how the prevalence or how many men tend to suffer violence from the female folk. But according to the Mankind Initiative is a charity organization that is based in the UK. And now this statistics is statistics from the UK, right? Out of every 3 individuals who suffer violence, 1 of them is a man. And 1 in 4 women in their lifetime will suffer physical violence from a man, compared to 1 in 6 men over his or her lifetime. And interestingly, they did note that 26% of men do experience forced marriage. That was strange to me when I saw it. The Crime Survey of England and Wales did report as of March 2023 this year that 6% of women suffer physical violence compared to 3% of men. Now in the US, For example, this is according to National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Okay. Is everybody still hearing me? Hello?
We're hearing you, sir. Dr. Matthew,
Okay,
please go on.
okay, all right. So according to this US-based organization, in the US, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience some form of physical violence from the opposite gender, while 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men experience severe physical violence. Now, in Nigeria, we do not have statistics about men suffering violence. Our National Demographic Health Survey, which provides data that the government depend on to make its decision, did record or report that 1 in 3 women in Nigeria suffer physical violence. But guess what? In that survey, this was the most recent survey done in 2018. Men were not asked about the experience of physical violence of any sort. But when the multiple indicator cluster survey was done in 2021, while this survey did not ask about experience of violence, it did ask about attitude towards violence. It was reported that 48% of women say that it is justifiable for a man to hit his wife, compared to 37% of men who agree that it is justifiable for men to hit their wives. What's the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that, physical violence against a fellow human is something that is universal that can happen to anybody. Just recently, the Lagos State government reported 340 cases of domestic abuse against men between September 2022 and July 2023. Now, given the kind of society where we live in, you can imagine how much of that number would have gone unreported. Now, are we saying that women, are there not cases of women who are not also reported? Of course, it is easier for a female to report issues of violence against them compared to men because of several reasons. Now, chief among this is the societal expectation that men should be tough and appear invincible. So admitting that you have suffered violence of any kind, will make you appear to be falling short of that expectation of society. 2, we have the stigma that is around men being vulnerable. What's the English now? Expressing your vulnerability, right, undoubtedly is a significant barrier because no man wants to be seen as being weak because of the box that society has placed men. I'm going to ask here now for those of us who are here, if a man comes out and complains that he was beaten up by his wife, I'm sure many people will laugh him to scorn. Or for example, a man coming out to say that he was raped. There will be all manner of comments around that report. So these are issues that make it difficult for men to come out and report such occurrences in their life. In 2000, during the lockdown, I made a compilation of violence committed by women against men that made it to the news. And between January 28 and September 20 of 2020, actually, I was able to locate 24 different acts of violence against men that made it to the news between that time period. One of them was a female who was constantly harassing a man. And on one of those occasions, she actually physically attacked the man, and then later on accused the man of attempting to rape her. Of course, the man was immediately arrested and taken to the police station. This was in Lagos State. Unknown to the man was wearing a body cam. Apparently, because of what has been transpired going on between them, he decided to, take proactive measure. When the video was finally played, you know what happened? The police, they dismissed the case as a case of two fighting. Now, he was immediately arrested because the woman accused him of trying to rape him. Now, when video evidence now proved otherwise, now the woman was not arrested for physically assaulting the man, neither was she arrested for raising false alarm against the man. They told them to go and settle the matter. There was a case of two fighting. Now, people who, in this kind of scenario, I doubt that this man will want to, come out tomorrow to want to make reports that anything has happened to him or her, or rather to him. So, and the tendency is that this kind of action will make men not to come out. They will bottle up whatever emotion, whatever frustration that they are experiencing with regards to what is going on around them, because they're unable to speak to anybody because, one, they are not sure that anybody will believe them. Two, we are likely going to judge them. Three, people will make fun of them. And so this fear may keep them in their, to themselves. And this can have significant stress, or can create stress in their lives, leading to mental health issues. The statistics out there, that men are 4 times more likely to die from suicide compared to women. And we know that one of the leading causes of suicide is depression. Even though depression is diagnosed more in women. Again, is it because men are not coming out to make reports? This is left for us to think about. And this can lead to a whole lot. Apart from causing stress in the man, it can lead to the people becoming aggressive because they do not know what else to do with themselves, because they're not getting the support that they need. Now, so what can we do to change this scenario? How can we move this forward? One, we need to encourage men to begin to speak up about violence against them by addressing these societal norms that tend to keep men from complaining, reducing stigma associated with men who come out to express what has happened to them, and creating supportive environments that can encourage men to come out when they have suffered violence from any quarter. Two, we need to raise awareness, increasing public awareness about violence against men. It does happen. As it stands right now, we do not have the statistic. Probably is it because we're not interested? I don't know why we do not have numbers to show what the rate of violence is amongst men. So we need to begin to raise that awareness to about violence against men through campaigns and workshops and even educational programs. We need to highlight the fact that men can also be victims of gender-based violence. We need to normalize discussions and conversations about violence against men at various settings, with a school, in our communities, even in our workplaces. Of course, we need supportive environments that will, safe spaces where men can come out and be vulnerable, and talk about this, and then get the support that is required to help them deal with whatever it is that they are going through. We need to begin to challenge the stereotypes. We tell men, why are you behaving like a woman? Are you not a man? Why are you complaining this way? We need to understand that men and women have the same hormones that regulates the way we feel. So establishing this support services may encourage more men to come out and talk about the challenges that they are having. We need to dispel the myths around the stereotypes surrounding masculinity and how men should behave, which may probably be contributing to underreporting of violence against men. We need to begin to advocate for laws, and policies that address violence against men. even while I'm, talking about men here now, this is what I was supposed to talk about in this webinar, but we need to know that this should be addressed holistically, meaning we should be talking about violence against person, because it is not right for one person to hit the other person, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, you're not supposed to hit anybody else. So although I'm talking about men here, I think as we are internalizing this conversation, I think we should be, framing this in our mind that we are talking about, condemning violence of any form against any other human being. In the media, the media need to begin to make, positive portrayals of men who seek help and share their experiences. We need to encourage they need to be encouraged, to provide accurate and balanced reporting or representation of male victims in the media to counteract harmful stereotypes, as we have seen in our environment. Very importantly, we need to provide training for healthcare professionals and law enforcement, like the example that I gave, where when evidence came out to show that the woman was the aggressor, they just dismissed the matter and asked them to go and sort themselves out. So we need them training for our professionals, whether it's in the healthcare profession, whether it's law enforcement and other services, to recognize and respond to violence against men or any other person effectively. We need to create an environment where professionals treat all survivors with empathy and respect, irrespective of gender. And very importantly, a peer support group that provides a safe space for people to be vulnerable, describe their experiences, and then get support from like individuals to help them to continue to navigate the challenges that they are experiencing. So, of course, being able to share with someone who has gone through a similar situation or experience you are having goes a long way into helping people, to properly situate themselves and move on to getting closure or achieving healing to whatever it is that they have, experienced. So, but in the final analysis, we need to remember that creating an environment where men feel comfortable speaking up about violence involves a collective effort from communities, institutions, and individuals to break down stereotypes, promote open dialogue, and provide supportive services for all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew. We sincerely appreciate your contributions on this. And I remember when I reached out to Mr. Matthew and he said, I don't even think this should be called gender-based violence. It should be violence against people, because honestly, we are all faced with violence in one way or the other. And one of the key things why we're very key about talking about men and gender-based violence is because men most times just don't feel the need to come out and say that I have been violated, and because of that, it increases and it keeps happening and nobody knows about it. You hardly find data about it. So it seems like it's not happening. But a lot and a lot of men are going through this. And there was something Dr. Matthew said. He said men are most likely, to commit suicide or to die by suicide because they are not able to express, their what's in their mind. And that's because of society and what society has made them feel about who a man is and what a man should or should not do. Well, at this point, we've still not been able to get Dorothy, but we're still trying to get her back on. I'd just like to play a very short video. So I'd like to play a very short video on something that we did with some survivors. And as you watch that, I'd just like you to also just put in the chat box what comes to mind when you hear people's stories like this. And before we go on to that, anyways, I'd like to ask if there's any of you that have any questions for Dr. Matthew, you can just drop it on the chat box, so we'll have him back to answer us. So please just make use of the chat box. If you have any questions, just drop your questions. If you have any contributions, drop them on the chat box. Okay. would have our survivors share with us their with our contributions. I saw someone make a post ask for how people can drop their contributions or questions. Please just use the chat box. We would read it there. So I think I would even start with the last message. The last message says, and that's from Loki. It says, when it comes to issues of gender based violence, it appears that women are always victims. Hence, they blame men for the act of gender based violence. But just like the scenario Dr. Matthew just gave, when the report was obvious that the woman championed the act against the man, and it was not taken as then it wasn't taken as a serious issue. This is obviously an ill treatment against men coming from law enforcement units. This case should be investigated and treated accordingly. Thank you. And thank you very much for your contributions, Lucky. Yes, and that is why we're having these conversations, so that each and every one of us, if a man comes out and says, I have been abused, it is not now in your place to say, you be man, why do you let that happen? It could happen to anyone. And that's why we're asking each and every one of us to lend our voices as well. Um, okay, so I'd right now like us to now watch the video on it's a very short video anyways on the gender-based violence, very short one.
Protection in the event of exposure to trauma is important for every human being. It's important for the state to step up and provide support to the people who have been exposed to violence. That's very important.
I was traveling down here from Lagos to Abuja. The name of my madam is Madam Chacha. I worked for her for like 3 months, but she didn't pay me my salary. So I was raped in her shop, and I explained everything to her. She did not bother. She be like, that's none of her business. That she just dressed up and moved back to her business.
I was being accused of taking manhood, and he was like, I'm the one that take his manhood, it's not working. When I passed, he felt like something has been taken from his body. Before I could know it, he started beating me up from one hand to the other one, So we were using stick. They beat me up. I was being threatened to be burnt before they came to my rescue. The vigilante people came and rescued me.
I'm a survivor of sexual and gender-based violence, and I know firsthand the importance of stepping up for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence and preventing sexual and gender-based violence.
So that is it. Just an insight to, what people go through. And I'm so glad that there is even one of them that is not necessarily the typical a husband is beating a man thing. But so just so that you understand that when it comes to gender-based violence, it's not just about the husband and wife thing, but even society generally. So it could just have happened to anyone, you being on the street and someone picking up on you, and then meeting that kind of violence against you. So at this moment, I'd like to introduce one of our very courageous survivors who would share with us her experience. I am giving you, I don't want to give so much of introduction, but I am giving you the ground to be able to unmute your mic if you see that. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So you can just go on. The
Hello
floor is
everyone.
yours.
Hello everyone. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I am a survivor of gender-based violence. I would not want to use that word because it's a bit heavy on me. And coming up to share my story is my act of resilience to to the whole gender-based violence thing. So I was molested when I was very young, age 7, 8. by a very close relative. When I mean close, I mean a family member, direct sibling to my mom. So we are all familiar, those from the north, with the common notion that says, firstborns are they are timid, they are not wise. So that alone bruised my self-esteem, living with it without even being able to even share it with my mom, because I was at the mercy of a relative because of how she wasn't around. We had to go stay with relative. So when it happens, as a child, you look at, okay, so if I say this now, how will it make my family look? Or if I say this now, it's just the common, I'll use the way the Hausa word puts it. It said, firstborn wayuni. That means firstborns are just foolish. They don't do things right. They are always timid. They are always emotional. So they don't think rationally. And the threat to, okay, if you tell anybody, I'm going to kill you. Yeah, for an 8-year-old child to hear that from a relative who is supposed to protect, and having abused the opportunity of being a protector to this child. I lived with it. I struggled in school. I was on the very defensive part. I was just the lowest of all in my class. Not until I was about rounding up my first degree, then I had to join a baptismal class. At a point, the lesson that day was, you have to forgive. And it hits differently because, of course, we always say the Lord's Prayer, forgive those who trespass against you, as our Father in heaven will forgive us. So I quickly ran to the pastor to tell him, please, I can't do this baptismal thing because I have some really deep wound in my heart that I can't even share with you. He understood where I was coming from. He immediately referred me to somebody, to one of his mentors who works with youth ministry and is into trauma healing and care. So I met with this reverend just to talk, because I'd already prepared my mind that you cannot even do anything. This pain has been there. I don't need to go through this class. I'm just respecting my pastor because he said I should talk to somebody, because I couldn't talk to him. So of course, a trauma healer, trauma caregiver, being trained in that field, asked to see me. That was when I realized how deep the wounds are. Just like our physical wound can be cared for, he made it known that even your heart wound can be cured. He walked me through the process, the whole process of talking about it, the whole process of you have to let it go, which it's very difficult to let go. I must confess that when I was asked to share my story, I felt sick this morning. Like all of a sudden, I felt sick. This is the story that I've shared over and over because of him, I joined Trauma Healing Institute, where through the process of your healing and caregiving ministry, you learn to share your story, because each time you share it, it sounds like a new story, or it relieves you of a lot. So I got to share my story again when I applied for a fellowship. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, I scaled through the second stage of it. At the long run, I wasn't shortlisted. So it just hits me back again that probably is because of my story. Probably they couldn't take the fact that this girl, when the world look at you, that you were molested, she was raped. The word rape is a very big thing. She was raped, and they don't care to know whether was it your fault. It was a child, not a woman. that was raped, even if it's a woman, it's the pain isn't different at all. So I got talking with one of my mentors, and he said, you know what? It's their loss. It's your story, and it's unique. So share it. So to to get the whole long story short, I tried again after feeling very discouraged sharing my story. I tried again, and this time around, it's a fellowship for women. It's a women sharpening iron. So I shared the story, and I don't know. It just happened that I was picked again. So that my mentor and some of my close friends will say, yes, it's actually your story. So in essence, society plays a major role in numbing the voice of people who have been molested. I won't say female because it's cut across both male and female. A boy can also be molested. So when you look back and look at the words that hit you in your family, you always want to swallow it and not talk about it. So the family itself did not help me at all to create a safe place for me to even talk about it. Even if I would talk about it and cry about it, it's okay. Then you have the whole community looking at you like, this girl, is she even, maybe she's cursed. Why would that happen to her? And the whole, let me protect my family. Let me protect my family name and not say this so it won't spoil my family's name in quotes. It just keeps you in a spot where you are helpless and not able to do anything. So at the cost of my training with Trauma Healing Institute, the part of where you grieve a loss, that there are 3 stages to this thing. The first is when you are so in denial of what happened to you, coming from a place of, this is my own blood doing that wronged me. Then you go to a stage whereby you feel so hopeless. If a relative can do this to me, any other person can. I'm prone to being violated by any other person. Then you go to the last place where you decide that, yes, I want to bounce back. This is resilience for me, my ability to bounce back to life, look at life in a whole new dimension, that whatever it is that happened doesn't define me. But again, they always made it clear that it's okay to go back. It's okay to sometimes feel hopeless, but your ability to thrive through and start afresh makes you a resilient person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, and that was touching. Thank you for your resilience. And we just hope that with her story, each and every one of us are able to understand that this is more real than we think it is. It is closer than we think it is. And most times, when you even hear stories about molestation of children, you realize most times it happens from people that are supposed to actually take care of these children. And that is why we always have to speak up. That is why we always have to lend our voices so that they're able to get justice. It may take years, but at least if these survivors are able to get justice, that would be able to help them in their healing journey as well. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Dorothy. We've gotten her back. Thank you very much, Dorothy, for joining us. And we'll yield the floor to you right now. You share with us your insights as an activist, and what is the way forward for us as individuals on what we can do, how we can lend our voices in the fight against gender based violence. Over to you now, Dorothy. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear
we
me
can
now?
hear you. Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, sorry, I'm in transit, but I'm trying to participate. What was the last? What do you want me to do?
Okay, so we're asking for your insights on your work as an activist and the
Ah,
landscape of yes gender-based violence in Nigeria.
absolutely. So, my work as an activist, I'm not just my background is communications, right? And I work with the Dorothy Jemanze Foundation. It's a survivor-run organization that caters to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. There's a lot of prevention work we do, and then real-time response to sexual and gender-based violence is one thing we do. Dorothy Jemanze Foundation runs two facilities. There's the Dorothy Jemanze Foundation Survivor Support Center, and there is the DNF Safe Space. The DNF Safe Space is a crisis and a transitional shelter. And one thing we notice with the shelter is that majority of the people who come broken or leave their valuables when they're running, and at the end of the day, they don't have what to fall back on, right? So it takes an average of 8 months for us to be able to fundraise for people to get their first year's rent. It is a huge problem that needs to be taken care of for the first year's rent to be gotten for people who are in the shelter so that they can easily transition away from the shelter. There's no exit strategy for people who come to the shelter. The support structure for people in the shelter is another thing that needs to be revisited. Access to food, hygiene and sanitary products, books, utility bills. It's a very big problem coping with that. And we are the only shelter that I'm aware of that takes in pregnant women and girls. I don't see any reason why there should be discrimination against people who are already pregnant. They're having things a little harder for them. And so um, as much as possible, I think that we should create systems that can support realistically. Now, with the Survivor Support Center, what do? We provide services for survivors real time. What kind of services do they need? Access to medical care. And the beauty of what medical care has done for us is it has provided scientific corroboration to stories of survivors in places like law courts, in addition to, helping them to get well. We do hand-holding system where we report cases to law enforcement on behalf of survivors and follow them through the process. What this has helped us to do is it has attended to the large reports of cases of forced settlements by law enforcement officers. However, it exposes us to hostility from law enforcement officers who would have preferred to force a settlement. We do a lot of empowerment. We do a lot of legal services, including alternative dispute resolution. First-hand counseling is one thing that we readily do. And so it's a wide range of things. However, everything we do is very important. For sustainability, our plan is tell the stories of survivors. We need to not only tell stories of survivors, but tell them in a way that we can monetize our storytelling abilities. There are a lot of stories that are domiciled in our facilities and with our clients, So if we can build the capacity of people to tell their stories, then we can monetize that. And that would add to a huge sustainability plan because sexual and gender-based violence does not go on break. So the support system for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence should be funded to respond real time. And that's something that we try to do. A lot of people are preparing to go for the Christmas break. They're talking about when their leave is going to start. DNF is talking about when the work is going to get worse. First of all, there's the 16 days of activism where many people suddenly remember us instead of, all year round and all of it. Then after it, we usually find out in our office, we usually know in our office when there is a public holiday, and that's because there's increase in reports of sexual and gender-based violence. So while you're going to be doing Christmas, we're going to be responding to people. However, this is just what it looks like. Then for those of us on the front lines, there's not enough support for our well-being and welfare. We are constantly exposed to disease, we are constantly exposed to security risk, and we need people to practically support us. What does practical support translate to? Practical support translates to additional devices, separate work devices, because perpetrators get pictures of family members from their WhatsApp status and all of that and used to threaten us. There's a lot. We need increased corporate social responsibility and individual social responsibility to bridge the gaps that currently exist so that there's, alternative support system. Majority of our funding partners, and of course, our begging systems on social media. But we need it more dignified. We need more people to be deliberately committed to. I'll stop here for now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much, Dorothy. We sincerely appreciate you. But we know that this time is a very busy time for everybody doing things around gender-based violence, and we know that you really had to squeeze out time to be here. Thank you so, so much. And for even being able to hold the hands of survivors, on being able to, for them to be able to tell their stories and to even seek for justice. I remember, as much as Dorothy Njomaze Foundation seems like it's just an all-female thing, it's not only female. They've had issues where they've had men also come to the shelter and, report that we've had these issues and all of that. And just in case you're on this call and you're wondering, so what can I do? And this thing they are saying is police that should handle this. Each and every one of us have a stake in this. You can actually be the one that would hold the hand of a survivor and say, I will be with you to be able to report your story, to be able to say that this is what happened to you, even at the police station, and always be with the person. One of the reasons why survivors don't always tell their stories because there is no one giving them that support. And they feel even if I go there, they would say, what did you wear? Or why were you there at that time? Or for the men, they say, are you not a man? How can this kind of thing happen to you? You know, be man, yeah, a half man. Or you can take it upon yourself to say, I would be the support system for that person and push through, make sure that whenever that person needs someone to be able to say their story and narrate it, and not forgetting that narrating this story or narrating what has happened to them is not easy. Like you could hear our first survivor, it took her a whole lot. And that is after so many years of having gone through this. But it took her a whole lot to be able to narrate her experience. So you can always be that support for anybody. And just in case you don't even know, the VAP Act, Violence Against People's Prohibition Act that has been passed in Nigeria, actually indicts each and every one of us that if you see violence being meted against someone unjustly, you have to report. It is your responsibility as a citizen to report that. At this moment, I would like to give yield the floor to our second speaker to speak. So you can go ahead. Just like I'm always avoiding to do the introductions, but you can go ahead.
So please unmute yourself and speak. I think you know who you are.
Yes, I've granted you permission, so you can unmute yourself and speak. Okay, so you can unmute yourself and speak. I've given you access to be able to do that. Yes, we can hear you, but you can speak a bit louder.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you please hear
Good
me?
afternoon. Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to share my story. I'm happy that I'm alive to share my story. I feel like people are there sharing my story and referring to my enemy as late so woman. I'm, I'm happy and I thank God that I'm alive. First of all, I want to say thank you to Dorothy Injemaze Foundation, DNF, for the support they rendered to me while the opportunity before me. It really helped me through. I stayed in a shelter for like good 8 months before I exited. They really tried their best, all the necessary things for my comfort within my stay. They tried their best in providing a lot, and I was in that shelter. I entered that shelter when I was 5 months pregnant, and I was there all through. I gave birth before I left, and they took care of all my bills, my welfare. I was there. I was not there alone. I was there with my other two kids. So we went there three, then leaving the shelter, we left in four in numbers. They really tried. The first time I get to know about Dorothy and Geographic Foundation, I was surprised, like, is there really something like this? Is there really an organization like this? I never knew such is existing in Nigeria. I only knew about it in the US and in UK. I was so amazed and I was so happy. And they are really trying their best, put their effort. Miss Dora, she has that goodwill to help gender-based violence victims. So far before now, sharing my story is very much traumatic to me. It's just not quite long that I'm healing over it that I can easily share my stories without being traumatized or without crying. So I'm happy to share my story. So this is my story. I please is anyone still hearing me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. So this is my story. As a young girl coming up in life, I left my parents, I left my home, started trying to survive on my own. So that's how I got I was working and with my work to get myself into university before some kind of things happened that I became stranded. I lost my accommodation during that bomb blast thing in the state where I was staying. So it led to my loss of accommodation and my business. So I was left for no option than to pack in with a man. So from there, just staying with him and and well, I started cohabiting with him, and from there, pregnancy came in, and I was with him. Though I was not prepared for anything marriage, but life was unfortunate to me. As a young girl surviving alone, I have no support. I have nobody supporting me. In fact, my parents are even expecting from me. So I have to put all my efforts to make sure I make it out there and help myself and help the family. So that's how I got involved with this certain man that we started having children. And he was, from the onset when we started, he was nice, but at sometimes I was seeing some red lines, but I was so naive that I did not take I did not care about it until it became very worse that there was no exit for me because I was under him. He was not like financially capable. I was not financially capable, so I have to just keep on enduring. But within the relationship, my family gets to know and his family gets to know. Then he was making plans to go and do the necessary thing, the necessary marriage legal. But even during when I was staying with him, I was discouraged. Like I cannot marry this kind of a person that acts like a monster. But when I report to my family or to his family, they were like, "No, marriage is like that. You have to enjoy it. That is it. Do you know what we too we saw in our own marriage? We endure because of you. So you have to endure because of children in marriage. Men are like that generally." I was like, wow. So and during the time of speaking up, I will get like this awkward feeling, shame because of some kind of words being said to me. But So I have no choice. I just have to remain there until the last incident happened that almost took my life. That almost take, that almost took my life. So that was when a sister of mine that knows about Dorothy Jemavi Foundation offered help to me. That gets to them and they help me all throughout. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Sorry, my kids are disturbing. I'm attending to them. So
Yeah, we
that's
understand.
my story in summary. That's my story in summary. It was not funny. It was not really enjoyable, but I had no choice. I had to remain there. So that's my story just in summary. But now, being a gender-based violence survivor, my advice is this to whomever that is listening to me right now that will have that good heart to make effort to support young ladies, especially my own side that have similar stories with me that they have to go out of their parents' house to start sorting out for themselves at a tender age, at the age of 17, 18. Like I'm pleading if it is possible, there should be a structure, like educational structure, just like a random academic too, for marital education because some of us are not maritally educated. We don't even know our rights in marriages. The only thing we know is that we know about only traditional rules concerning marriage. The hell of those and don'ts concerning marriage that is the traditional thing. Many of us are not maritally educated because I was very naive. I don't really know anything much more about marriage. The only thing I grew up to know is how to make money because I got that drive when I was with my parents. My dad was actually abusing my mom. So I developed hatred for my dad the way he was maltreating my mom. So the only thing that came into me was just make money and give your mom a comfort. Try and make money. So that was the only thing I drew up to. So that was why when I left my parents, the only thing I went for was to be making money. I wasn't even thinking about marriage until it happens to me. So I was so naive. I don't know my rights in marriage. It was only when I get to Dorothy the Mother Foundation that I started knowing some things. Started knowing about what they call emotional abuse. I didn't even know about it. Started knowing something about like emotional intelligence. I didn't even know all these things. Those became new things to me. That was where I was offered a book. I read about my rights in marriage. Wow, I was exposed to a different, like I think I was exposed to a different world. So that's my own contribution. So I'm actually pleading that this should be looked into. Young girls coming up trying to survive on their own, coming from a family that is not financially buoyant, they have to go out to the street. Some of us are very decent, but situation pushed us into the hand of a man or a friend or a company that can actually abuse us. It's not actually our wish. Life just happens. So that's my own contribution.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. And we understand that yes, the kids are there. They always demand attention. But thank you very much, and we sincerely appreciate you sharing your story with us. And we just hope that your story is able to inspire others to speak up. Because even though statistics says 1 out of 3 women is affected by gender-based violence, and that is for women, quite a number don't even report. Quite a number do nothing about it. It happens that they just move on with life. And that's because they feel sometimes they may not get justice, they may not get the help that they need. But just like our second survivor, she was able to get help. And there is actually help for survivors out there. And that's why we're doing this, but also, give you options of how you can get help, also give you information on how you can get help if you have been abused in one way or the other. But before we go on to that, we have some few questions in the chat
Yeah,
box. And
hello, Miss Flores. Can you still hear
yes,
me? There's
yes, we
something
can
I
hear you.
forgot to add. There's
Okay,
something I
please go
forgot to
ahead.
add. During the period I was facing those abuse, I could remember I reached out to some women that are close to me that could open up to. I was telling them, do you know what they have to tell me? They said, babe, but you have to endure and stay. That do I know what them to they are passing through their own marriage? One of them asked them that do I know that the husband beats there's no week that goes by that the husband doesn't beat her. But she don't have choice, she has to stay. If not, they'll call her a bad wife that she cannot maintain her home, that women are to build their home. So she has to endure and stay, hoping till when the man will change. That and as you know that and the other one was like, hey, you know that people will hear and they will mock you. You know, they'll call you single mom. If you leave your marriage, you have to endure and stay. Beware of stigma out there. And look at it, the boys you are even having, who will marry you again. And what will you survive? Oh man, those things, those are the things, that is what is happening in society. That's why so many women can't speak up. Even the ones that have the courage to speak up, when they speak up, there's no even help. They get mocked and they get names calling at the end of it. Also, it will be good if there'll be a structure for educational, there will be structure for marital education. I think it is something that will be very, very good. And I believe that millions of women will appreciate this. And I believe that if there's a shout out there, there are so many that will still give their support for such kind of structure.
Thank you very much for that, because that is also key to why quite a number of people do not report this kind of cases. We know that, yes, sometimes the systems in our country is not necessarily in its best shape, but the truth is, if we don't keep quiet and we don't keep talking about these things, it makes the matter worse. What puts pressure on the system is when we talk about it. So for each and every one of us, if you know someone that is going through abuse and the person feels that he doesn't want to talk, please encourage the person to. Yes, sometimes it may take time, but please always encourage the person to, because that is how we're able to have our systems know that this is something that should be top burner and this is something that should take precedence, especially when it comes to policies. And that's the only way. That was how the VAP Act was being able to be pushed, to be passed. And we're still even pushing for it to be passed in other states, to be domesticated, I mean, in other states. But we can't afford to keep quiet. If we keep quiet, nothing will get done. If we speak about it, at least we begin to see results. We're beginning to see small results, and we hope that we'll even see bigger and better results. Thank you very much for sharing with us your story. So, back to the questions and answers. We'll take up the question and answer session now. And we have some few questions. And I'm very, very excited that I'm seeing even the men become more interested in things that have to do with gender based violence. They're even beginning to ask questions about things that affect men. So, one of the questions, and I hope Dr. Matthew is here to help answer us. And I'm happy that this question is very health related, and Dr. Matthew is a public health expert. Please, and this is Madaki Bashir Shoaibu
Yeah,
asking, is
okay.
circumcision in babies male classified under gender based violence? Is circumcision in men especially for babies, because you know that circumcision is done for young boys, is it classified under um, uh, gender-based violence? Dr. Matthew, I think I'll give you the floor to answer this. Dr. Matthew, you can speak now.
Yes, well, I thought I responded to him in the chat, but of course, there's no way circumcision of a male child is considered gender-based violence, because there's more than enough evidence to demonstrate the usefulness or the importance of circumcising a male child, and that's the importance of doing that circumcision is not in doubt anywhere. So it is not gender-based violence because it has medical indications, medical reasons why it is done.
Thank you very much. And I know that that question is coming from the place where we're talking about circumcision for women, and that is it. But thank you very much for that. Another question we have is still for you, Dr. Matthew, is what approaches have been put in place to prevent gender based violence against men? Are there like specific things put in place, or is it just the general, laws that cover for females are also cover for male.
Okay. So ideally, the way it is at the moment, just like you did mention, the focus appears to be for women at this point. And like I did mention in my presentation, there are several strategies that can be adopted, and it works. It works for both men and women. It's not one. There's not one size fits all, and two, it's ideally should work for both men and women. It's just that at this point, the focus appears to everything that is being done at this point appears to be targeted towards women. We do have a violence against persons prohibition bill, which also covers men, but domestication has not happened across all the states in the federation. And then again, as we know, implementation of our laws and policies, is still problematic at this time.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I think that is so far the questions that we have. And yes, just like I said at the beginning of this meeting, this platform gives us an opportunity to lend our voices. We have heard from the points of the experts, we have heard from the points of the survivors, and even on the point from the point of first responders, and how they're able to help survivors. And if you're wondering, how can I have said it over and over again, lend your voice, be that support for survivors, be with them all the way. But for us on this call right now, I'd just like us to just show a commitment to the fact that we are willing to be there for survivors, and that we would break the stereotypes that say, what did you wear and that's why you were raped, or are you not a man, how can a woman beat you? Let us be the advocates, let us be the activists to stop and break those stereotypes. And so for 16 days of activism, and generally for gender-based violence, there is a particular sign, I would say, that we have, that shows commitment to say that we're ending gender-based violence. And I'd just like to demonstrate it for us. It's just the hand that goes like this, and it says your hand saying no to gender-based violence. And so at this moment, I would give access to each and every one of us so that we can go over it again. Just like I have put my hand and you can see on my video, I'd like all of us to also stretch out our hands like this and unmute our mics and say no to gender-based violence. And that would serve as a form of commitment, all of us saying we're committing to saying no to gender-based violence. So I'll give us just 1 minute or 2 minutes, all of us, to get ourselves together so that we're able to do that.
This brother's camera.
Are we ready? Are we ready? Each and every one of us have been given access to unmute our mics and, yes, show our videos, start our videos. Can we? So can we?
Wait now.
For our survivors, you don't have to do that. For our survivors, if you don't have to do that.
Wait, let me open.
Okay.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Taking a song
Sorry.
or something.
say no to gender-based violence with their hands like that. No to gender-based violence.
No
So
to
we'll take that
gender-based
again.
To
violence.
One,
gender-based violence.
thank you. So that was a dry one. Let's take it right now. Thank you. One, two, three. No
No to
No.
No to
gender-based
No to
gender-based
gender-based
violence.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we hope that that serves as your commitment to be that guide, to be that support for every survivor of gender based violence. Thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate your presence today at this webinar. But just before we wrap it up, I'd just like to yield the floor to the Executive Director of the Center for Communication and Social Impact. Matt, the floor is yours right now, just to give us her closing remarks and we'll wrap up the webinar. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Lois and team, supporting Lois behind and in front of the scenes. Thank you so much to our participants for staying tuned despite the up and down with the technical hitches. Thank you most especially to our survivors who have shared their personal stories and who have given us a little bit more push to be able to speak out in support of addressing traits that have to do with gender-based violence, whether for women or for men or for boys or for girls. I'd like to also thank especially Dorothy and Dr. Matthew, our co-speakers, keynote speakers who have provided insights that I think will continue to shape the way we think and take actions around this sensitive topic. I really just want to close by saying, like I said, this is a condition that doesn't need special days for us to celebrate before we do something. And whether or not we like it, we all have scars, directly or indirectly, from violence, gender-based violence. So I just want to enjoin us all to just keep the fire burning, to keep doing what we can to support organizations like Dorothy's Foundation that really goes out of their way, irrespective of the threats of security, irrespective of not even having all the resources and putting themselves out there for people who need that shelter, to keep on supporting them. And if all you can do is to speak and encourage people that you know who have been through this to find the help that they need so that they can still continue. I hope you can all hear me because I see that technology is still threatening even at this time now. So they can still
Yes,
continue
we
to,
can hear.
all right, to live a most productive life. So lastly, I really want to appreciate the team at CCSI. I don't think anybody on the call understands how much running up and down they're doing, especially when technology decided to throw a challenge that we really did not have an answer for. So I'm hoping that we won't wait until the next 16 days of activism, and I'm speaking to the team at CCSI, because what you've been able to do is to bring together a constellation of people who have interesting insights and who can share personal stories. And if we're able to do this at least once every quarter, I think by the time we have the next celebration, you'll just be consolidating on everyone's achievements. So if you're on this call and you want to support or join or find out how CCSI supports works against gender-based violence, please write to us, info@ccsimpact.org, and mention that you've been on this call, and then we'll take it from there. I can take the email address again, info@ccsimpact.org. And I'm sure Lois is already typing it in the chat box as we speak. Thank you so much. We can give you 3 minutes back. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And we look forward to your participation when we invite you the next time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over from me.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And thank you, everybody. We sincerely appreciate your presence on the call this afternoon. Do you have a great day? And don't forget, we all are now advocates against gender based violence. Be that support for everyone out there. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.